So excited to be here. This feels like we're taking all of our Marco Polos into public
I
land.
know. I'm so excited to have you. Thanks for making the time to chat with me. This is Mariana. We're very good friends, and so this chat actually might just take on a life of its own here, but I'm so excited. So tell everyone who you are and what you do, and how you ended up in the creative world.
Yeah, okay. So a long story. I'm going to try to put it into a short form here for everyone. But about 3 years ago, I was working in the nonprofit world as a project manager, event manager, for what I like to say was like a total dream job. I was planning large galas where our goal was to make $1 million. We had over 700 people in attendance. I was working with C-suite executives. It was just like the ultimate dream job. And it was also the first season of my life where I actually realized I was a workaholic and I hit complete burnout. And I had a lot going on with my business, or not my business, excuse me, my personal life, where we were trying to start our family and we were struggling. So I felt like I was a zombie there. But then also I was like waking up super early, working really late, really early. I mean, I was working all hours of the day because I was so passionate about what I was doing. And I started to see this like zombie circle happening in my life where I started to actually not enjoy what I was doing. And I started to really feel a lot of unhappiness in both life and in my work. And so I had a moment where I was like, this is a dream job, but it's not my dream job anymore. And I have to let go of it because it is a dream job for someone else. And so I had talked to my boss, who I'm still really good friends with, and explained this whole situation to her. And I ended up walking away, and I didn't have a backup plan. I had no idea what I was going to do. And I was following a few people in this creative world that I didn't know existed on Instagram. And they started talking about a virtual assistant. And I was like, what is this virtual assistant thing? Like, I need to do something. I can't not have a job forever, but I also don't really know what I want to do or what's next. And so I started to do a ton of research and started to learn about digital marketing because ironically, I went to school for marketing and public relations, but back when we were in school, it was very new, like digital marketing wasn't really a thing. Like you had Snapchat, you had maybe, I think Instagram might have started, but it wasn't really used for business. There was Twitter, and obviously Facebook, but none of that was really like intense digital marketing at the time, or they weren't teaching it. And so it's funny, it felt like I was starting over again with like learning digital marketing and marketing in general. And so I started to hop into this industry, and one of my friends who I reached out to had gone to an event and met a bunch of, creatives in this industry. And she said, I have a friend who's looking for a virtual assistant. You would be perfect. And I'm like, what the heck is a virtual assistant? But okay. So again, started to do some more research and was like, it was a little bit of a step back, probably looking at it now of what I was doing. But it was like I was relearning a new industry, and I was learning digital marketing again, and I was getting my feet wet. And so I started working with an incredible entrepreneur who I was with for almost 3 years. And she was like the first one to invest in me, the first one to trust in me, the first one to like hand over pieces of her business to me. And I started to get fired up about business. And I started to realize that I really love supporting others inside their business. So as a virtual assistant, I was doing things, taking admin tasks off her plate. I was, emailing and in the inbox, really helping her so she could sit in her zone of genius. And then I started to see more pieces of her business as she started to grow that I could take off her plate. And so I started to kind of ask and pull some of those things off, or she could see that I could start to do them. So she started to hand them over. And that's really when I started to step out of being just a virtual assistant, of really doing the admin task, really having a checklist every day, to stepping more into that project management, that brand manager role, where I now was helping create strategies. I now was helping create the overall picture and then handing it over to contractors and making sure that projects were getting finished from beginning to end, so she could really sit in her sales side of things or her one-on-one services side of things. And so I started again really realize like this is what I'm good at. And at the same time, I'm running my own business, I have my own clients, but I realized it's a lot harder for me to actually run my own business than it is for me to sit in my clients' businesses. And so I just learned personally that I'm not a visionary. I'm not the CEO. I thrive in detail. I thrive in chaos. And I love to be able to like bring order to that chaos and bring systems and processes and be that leader to the team. And so that's really where I started to realize that I'm not necessarily the visionary. I am this project manager. And then I started to dig even more into traction and rocket fuel. And that's where the term integrator really came in, and where I really realized like that is more that business focus instead of doing those virtual assistant tasks. I thrive in sitting down with a CEO, in with the leadership team, and being able to help create that business plan, and then going out and making sure it gets done, or creating the quarterly plans and making sure that we're holding the team accountable, looking at our P&L statements and our scorecards every week, and just making sure that we're seeing growth instead of like going backwards, so that we're not just posting on Instagram for the fun of it to keep up with the Joneses, but instead like actually doing it for a purpose. So that's really where it's like crazy how every single piece of my puzzle of my journey, I feel like, has brought me from virtual assistant into really where I am now. And honestly, we met more when I was in a virtual assistant. We were on a same team. And so it's just fun to see over the last 3 years where I've seen that entrepreneurs need support in the creative world, and also where I really enjoy supporting. So that is a short story of the long story, but that's really where I am. Yeah.
I love what you said there, though, that you found a role that works for you, and you might not be the visionary and you realize that, but you have created a role that really works for your personality and the life that you want. And we're going to talk a lot about that, because in the entrepreneurial world, in the creative industry, there's a lot of pressure to run your own business a certain way, I feel like. And so I love, like, we both work on teams. So let's talk a little bit about what it's like working inside someone else's business.
Yeah, I love that, how you said that too, because it's interesting. I think every entrepreneur has to do some soul searching to really figure out who they are and what they love. Like for me, I was trying so hard to be the CEO of my business. I was trying to have a full client load and trying to do all the things and create all the services. And I wasn't happy doing it. But when I turn gears and I just look at business and I'm working in someone else's business, like I get so fulfilled from that. And it might be different for other people. They might be opposite, where they actually hate working in other people's businesses and they would rather be their own, CEO, that entrepreneur, or the soulpreneur who then is going to grow a team. But yeah, I would just say it's one of those things that you have to really figure out what it is that brings happiness to you. And so for me, it was very much trying to do those things and trying to keep up with what everyone was saying in the industry that you need to do. And instead seeing like, I actually really enjoy clocking in for somebody, doing what I need to do for them, but then also clocking out. I did not like when I was my own, trying to do my own thing, that I felt like I had to have it on all the time. And that just doesn't fit my personality. I can have it on when I need to have it on, but I need to also turn off and have family time, personal time, boundaries, because if I don't have those, I get into that workaholic phase, and that's when I hit burnout. And even when I was in a dream job, I have to walk away from it. So I think it's just come a lot from like learning how I function and knowing that not everyone is that same way. But that's really been, for me, working in other people's businesses, it's just been so fun to be able to chase after dreams they've set for themselves and for, their communities.
Yeah, I love that too. And of course, I love designing on teams because it gives me the opportunity to just design and not deal with a lot of the things that I don't particularly love. So I think a lot of contractors or freelancers or business owners don't realize that that's actually an option, that you can have your own business and also be doing what you love most on these teams. And it's kind of a win-win situation for both parties. So I love that for both of us.
And just to add to that, I think too, in our industry, I don't know where this started, but it feels like everyone says like, in order to have freedom, start your own business and do your own thing.
Yeah.
So we're all out here trying to do our own things, when like in reality, we could actually be teaming up together. And like, I still have freedom, and I still have so much of that flexibility, I guess, that I think a lot of entrepreneurs think that they'll have when they have a business, and then they start a business and they realize, whoa, this is a lot.
Yeah.
But I've realized that like, you can still have that on a team, and it doesn't mean that you lose your freedom or you lose your flexibility. And so even though technically I still own my own business, I've definitely thought about going to be an employee for someone else's business, because this is the environment and the industry I love and I thrive in. but it doesn't mean we all have to be on our own. There's so many entrepreneurs out there that are looking for designers to design for them. There are so many people out there that need virtual assistants or project managers or integrators, but it feels like we're all out here trying to like keep up and doing it on our own. And so I love how you said that. I just think this idea of growing a team it's not new in this industry. It's just, I think there's like a stigma towards it a little.
I totally agree. So I had a few questions come through for people that are looking to outsource things or maybe start growing a team. So for someone who has a lot of experience of coming on board to teams, what is the first thing that you want to outsource, and how do you know that you're ready to do that?
Yeah. Okay. This question is so good. And I feel like it can be different for a lot of different people, but I actually just went through an exercise with my team that I'm currently on. Our CEO is literally the most incredible human. She's constantly pushing us to always be learning, to basically, she always says, like, work yourself out of a job. She wants us to work ourselves out of a job. That means we're going for more, we're pulling for more, we want more, and we're handing off to the team other tasks. We're delegating, which for me at the start of this was so hard. It was hard to delegate. I'm like, I'll just do it. And I think as entrepreneurs, a lot of times we're like, it's easier if I just do it than if I train someone, or they can't do it as well as I can. So she actually taught me to write down, have a piece of paper and make 3 columns. And the first column should say do, the middle column should say don't, and the third column should say delegate. And for a whole day, write down every single task that you do. And it needs to fall in one of those buckets. So say, for example, you're designing for a client, that's absolutely in the do category. But now you're responding to an email in the inbox that you don't necessarily have to be doing. So that can be in the delegate. And then say you're, oh shoot, I have to post on Instagram because so-and-so posted 5 times this week and I need to do that as well. That goes in the don't category, or if maybe you need to figure it out. So literally for a whole day, maybe even a week, do that. And every single task that you're doing, create this grid for yourself so you can see what only you can be doing, and then what you can be delegating. And when you look at that delegate list, you'll actually be very surprised that can help you see what you need to hire. Is it a virtual assistant? Is it a lot of admin tasks that you just hand them over a checklist every single day and they go in and they check off all the boxes? Is it that you need to hire more of a project manager to help you do maybe that content marketing strategy, that higher level strategy type things? Is it that you already have a team and you are literally struggling to manage them? Then maybe you need to hire more of that integrator. So it really helps you see, like, where are you spending your time every single day? And I say do it on paper. It's better to like physically write it down. You can see that and like, wow, this is really interesting. So that's why I said it's different for everyone. It's not like a one answer fits all, but based on what you're doing in a given day or a given week, that'll really help you determine what you need to actually delegate.
I love that. It takes a lot of trust too. You have helped me in the process of really trusting and knowing that someone else can come in and basically like make my life better because I'm not doing all the things. But that's not easy to do as an entrepreneur who's used to holding the grip so tightly and doing it all. But it's such a blessing when you are able to pass things off. This is so timely because I'm passing off my onboarding and offboarding, which feels like such a scary deal. But I love that you can just come into businesses and take that pressure so that the owner can think about the bigger picture goals of where the business is headed.
Because at the end of the day, if you are a true visionary sitting in the visionary seat and you are doing project management tasks, you're not sitting in your zone of genius. So think about what you could do if you had the space and the energy to sit in your visionary seat and know that you've given the tasks, the project management role, the virtual assistant tasks over to somebody. And I know trust is hard because a lot of us start our own businesses. We put a lot of our own time and resources, money, energy into it. So to imagine someone else coming in and pouring the same amount of energy and trust and love into it, that's a hard thing. But that's where too, when you're bringing on a new hire, don't expect them to just like change your world in one day. It 100% comes in phases.
Yeah.
And so that's where you don't have to have everything figured out. Like you don't have to have all of your workflows figured out and written down right away before you hire someone, but maybe you record a Loom video of you doing something and then you hand that over to your new hire and they create the workflow and then they help take it over, and you create just different phases of the puzzle for them to check in, and eventually they'll be able to take it off and you might not even know anymore of the systems because they're doing it and they're making them better. And so it definitely, I think the trust is the hardest thing, but knowing that you have to slowly hand it off, and then from there it'll go from there. And sometimes you might slowly hand it off and realize it's not the right person. That
Right.
happens too, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
You have to find the right person. It might be trial and error, but I hired a VA. She's fantastic. And she came in without any workflows, started. I had crappy workflows started basically. And she came in and overhauled them because that was her zone of genius. So I ended up getting lucky in hiring for my weakness, which is amazing, so that I can focus on design and clients. Okay, so that brings me to my next question of pricing for profit, because when you are bringing a team member on, you can start small and it doesn't have to be like thousands and thousands of dollars. You can start with a few hours per week if that's what works, or even a few hours per month. But I guess the question is like, how can we make sure that we're pricing for profit so that we can like bring these team members on in a way that's sustainable?
This is also tricky when you're hiring, because I think it's very common for an entry-level VA to first of all overprice themselves. And so as a entrepreneur, like as that CEO who's hiring, you have to really look at, okay, what is the skill set this person is bringing in? Where do I see them growing? Where do I want them to grow in my company? And looking at that too, first your budget. That's the number one thing, is like budget yourself out. Understand how much can you physically afford to begin with, and then from there, once they start taking things off of your plate, you can start to see, okay, now I'm freed up to do this and I'm actually able to bring in more revenue. Now I can pay more. So you can do it by a certain amount of hours. You can do it by a certain amount of deliverables. Say you need them to help you with scheduling, certain blog posts and Pinterest, and you pay them for each deliverable, or maybe you pay them per hour. But I would just definitely say that it's something that you have to look at your budget first before we bring on that help to really step in. Too often I've just seen people say, I know I need to hire, and by hiring, I'm going to make more money, but then they don't look at that budget that they actually have, and then they hire someone that's overpriced for them in that season. But that's, I think, the biggest thing I would recommend.
Yeah, and then in my experience, after I brought the VA on, I was able to scale my business a bit more and then bring her on for more things. And I specifically hired a VA that could design internally. So now I don't design internally because I have to use that time on client projects, which allows me to make more money. So there's ways where your VA, I think a lot of people see it as like, oh, this is an expense, it's a cost, but it's really an investment to allow you to make more money, which is something I've just learned so much by bringing on one person. So I mean, I have so much respect for you working on a team that has lots of people and lots of moving parts.
And I think too, like, I love how you said it's an investment. It's a mental state that you need to get in when hiring a team, because you very often, it's hard to get rid of the trust issues right away, but also like to imagine what you could do once you hand those tasks off. It's like, well, I can't think of that because I don't know what that feels like. But once you do start handing it off, you start to learn more, and then giving them the opportunity to grow. I think that's something like you can give them the opportunity to grow in their role. If they don't want it and they want to stay just in that like virtual assistant world of like, you hand them a to-do list every day and they go through and they finish that to-do list and that's what they want to do, great. But if you find someone then that wants to continue to grow in the role, that's where it gets really exciting to continue to build that team. But I love how you said it's an investment, because it's also a mindset of looking at you're investing in them too, and you're supporting their family. And that is such a cool thing from a team building standpoint. So, and it's different for everybody. I'm on a team where we have multiple team members, and we actually are hiring more employees than we are contractors. So I think there's different stages of where, when you're a solopreneur and you need someone 5 hours a month, it's very different than when you need 6 to 7 to 10 full-time employees every single day, right? So it's different mindsets, it's different tiers. So to answer the question of like pricing for profit, I would first just recommend like looking at your budget and looking at that don't delegate list. What can you hand off? And that really helps. There's another really good tip. I'm just going to throw this in there because I just learned this yesterday. But if you're ever wanting to learn like the ROI of something, take that delegate list and put like a quantify it. So put like a price next to it of how much would this cost if someone else was doing it. Like if it was an issue that was getting fixed or the time that you're spending to do it, and then add that up and look at what the dollar amount is. And that can help show you like, wow, this is how much money I would be saving if I wasn't doing this, or this is how much money I would be making if this issue was solved and was done by someone else every single day. And that can help you to put a number on it to say like, this is my budget that I actually want and need in my business. Sometimes that's easier than being like, I can afford $1,000 a month or $500 a month, you know? So.
Oh, I just love chatting with you about this kind of stuff because you are on the total, it feels like opposite side than I am in the creative world, except it all has to do with each other. So it's so fun hearing all about growing that team. Okay, so you work on a team that launches often, and that, as I know, who also launches things, websites for clients, it can be really stressful. And when you're going through those seasons of launches, there is a lot of hustle that comes with that. So how do you deal with that? Because it can lead to burnout. And what does it look like for you to build in seasons of rest when you're in this kind of hustle culture that never left the creative industry?
Yeah, you know, it's unfortunate. I know you and I were talking about this on Marco Polo a few days ago, but it's like this hustle mentality, even though we say like rest not hustle, or like there's these sayings out there that it's like we don't want to hustle, but yet we all hustle because we're afraid of like being forgotten or afraid of being left behind. That's a huge thing that I've dealt with the last year when I've really slowed down my business. And went more part-time in what I'm doing and really built in those seasons of rest and those boundaries. But like we're all afraid, it feels like, to be forgotten and to like be left behind. And so it feels like we're all hustling to like launch more and do this and do that. And I think that's where, again, this hustle mentality comes from. And it looks so easy and looks so beautiful when we're watching someone on Instagram do it. But when you're on the back end of it and you know all the things that go into it, it still can be fun. I've had a lot of really fun launches, but it is a high stress. And so for me, it's so important to know that like when I'm in those seasons of hustle, it is a season and I'm in it. I'm in it for the hustle. Like I know some people are like, I hate the word hustle, but like, no, I physically say like, I'm hustling right now. Yeah. And that's okay. Like it is like early mornings, it is late nights, it is pushing the pedal to the metal all the time. And my husband knowing that is the season I'm in. So he's helping more at home with our daughter. He's doing more of that that type of stuff, but that's communicated to him ahead of time. I always know though that it's going to end because after a launch, I always build in myself a season of rest. And so that is what's so important, I think, for entrepreneurs. And I know for some visionaries, that's not in their cards because they thrive off the hustle and they don't hit that burnout. And that's okay. But for me, being back in my corporate world, learning that I become a workaholic easily if I don't have boundaries in place and that it burns me out, I know that in order to serve my family best, in order to serve my clients best, I need to recharge. And so when I get through those stressful seasons of hustle, that is when I go into like, I like to call my next season of like segueing out, like ramping down, where we're still closing up, we're doing our launch debriefs, we are still like, I'm still working, but then I'm entering into a season of rest. And when I say rest, that doesn't mean I'm like offline forever. This last season of rest, I did take a 2.5-week vacation, which was incredible, but it is more along the lines of I'm clocking in and I'm clocking out. And I'm only working the 3 days and I'm saying no on my Mondays and Fridays. Whereas when I'm in a season of hustle, I'm saying yes. I'm saying yes a lot because I know I need to do that in order to get through that season and in order for us to hit our goals as a team. But I only do that because I know it's not forever. So that's where I think it's really great for my team that I'm on is they understand that like in that season of hustle, we're all in it. But then during the seasons of rest, we've got those boundaries. So I set boundaries for myself after I had my daughter. So I came back from maternity leave and I decided I was only going to work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then Monday, Fridays would be my days with her. That was something that is just really important to me. It's something I know I needed to build in. Otherwise, I tend to, like I said earlier, work a lot, which a lot of entrepreneurs do. And so for me, again, when I'm in that season of hustle, I'm saying yes to working Mondays. I'm saying yes to probably working Fridays, but I know it's not forever. Then I hit that ramp down season, I hit that rest season. And that's where if I'm asked to work a Monday or Friday, for the most part, I say no. And I clock out at 4:30 and I'm shutting off. I'm not checking Slack. I'm not doing those things. And so for me, I would say when you're in those high stress launch seasons, you have to make sure that you're building in seasons of rest with it. And again, like I said, that doesn't mean you're resting and you're like not working forever. It just means you're slowing down. And I think it is so hard. It is easier to be in a season of hustle than it is to be in a season of rest because we are so used to hustling and keep like I said, we don't want to be forgotten. We don't want to be left behind. And so it's easier for us to just keep going and hitting burnout than it is for us to actually pause and rest and recharge. And I'm still trying to figure out why that is the case, but it is. Like when I officially decided to only work 3 days a week, it was the most uncomfortable, hardest thing I've ever done. Rather than like I still feel like working 7 days a week would looking back now was easier for me to do than to work 3 days a week, And so anyways, I'm kind of getting a tangent here, but I just feel like that has been when you're in these stressful launch seasons, it's just so important to make sure that you're building in these segues of like ramp up, hustle, ramp down, rest, ramp up. It's just this like roller coaster you have to go on as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so seasons in not only your business, but also your life, and building that in is so important. So how do you maintain those boundaries? Like I've seen a few different ways that you do. One is on your email. So can you talk a little bit about the different ways that you're able to use your time intentionally and how you set that up in your business?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's always a work in progress. So I just want to say that. And you have to give yourself grace because there's going to be times you slip and you might feel guilty about it, but you have to just give yourself grace. So a few ways that I do is, like I said, I give myself the space where I'm only working Tuesdays through Thursdays. That's something that I have built in, but that doesn't mean that during nap time on Monday and Friday, I don't hop in and get some projects done. It just means that I'm not taking any client calls Mondays and Fridays. I'm not making myself commit to anything on those days. And so to do that, what I've done in my inbox is I've actually set like an out of office responder that says like, I check my inbox only Tuesdays through Thursdays. You can expect to hear from me during those times. So it sets that expectation ahead of time that like, hey, I'm not going to respond on a Monday or Friday. And if I do, that's an over delivery, right? That's like I under promised and over delivered, but it's not an expectation that my clients expect all the time. And so that's something that I think is really important. The other thing is just knowing like I actually slowed down posting on Instagram. Like I don't ever post on Instagram much anymore unless it's personal because in the season of business I'm in right now, I don't need to. For someone else, they might need to keep that marketing going to get more one-on-one clients and to do all those things. But I am with my specific core team right now, and I don't have capacity to do anymore. And so for me, I don't spend my time Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays creating Instagram posts. That's not worth my time. So a lot of time during those days, I actually have my phone completely set aside. I have like a dream schedule built out where I can block out when I'm accepting client calls, when I'm going to do projects. Now, again, I give myself grace because I do not stick to that all the time, but it at least gives me those boundaries to be able to say like, this is what I'm committing to today. This is what I have availability to do today. And then I clock out. I always go pick up our daughter at 4:30. And so for me, that's my way of completely like I'm checking off. And if I still have projects to do, then it's when she's going to bed or I build that in some other way. So when I'm working and I'm working really hard. And when I'm resting, I'm with family and I'm resting. So that's probably the biggest ways. And again, it's not perfect. And when I'm in seasons of hustle, it doesn't look like that. When I'm in seasons of hustle, I'm working all the time. But when I'm in this restful, like boundary driven season, that's what this looks like.
Oh, I love that because it's not linear, especially when you added your daughter to the family, it's like things have to change and you have to be able to adjust your schedule to work with what's best for your life. But I think a lot of us business owners, it's like we're building the business and then our life fits into that. And I'm super passionate, and I'm not great at it, but I'm super passionate of helping people build a business that fits into their life instead, and how we can do that. So let's talk a little bit about how we can make sure that we're building a business that fires us up and that we're excited about, and that isn't like draining us of all energy, and what we can reflect on to make sure that we're really building it around our values and what's most important to us.
Yeah, okay. I have to share a story, because this is something that, again, this talks about slowing down and resting, and how it's easier for us to hustle versus like slowing down and looking at things. But when I first started my business 3 years ago, I had a journal that I've written in, and I wrote the vision of what I wanted my life to look like. I wrote down exactly like how many kids I wanted to have, and how I wanted to be able to, on a Monday morning, drive to my parents' house and grandma watches babies while mom works. And like, I was very specific about all the things. And I was sitting at a retreat in Texas last January, so a year ago, not this last one, but maybe even 2 ago. I can't remember now. And I had this journal out and I read it. And so this was 2 years into my entrepreneur journey, and I was like really unhappy in my business at that time. I felt like I was constantly hustling. I was pregnant with my daughter, but things didn't feel good. I was like, do I close my business? What do I do? This isn't right. I haven't found it yet. And I read this journal post from 2 years earlier, and I literally was living out, for the most part, I was living out what I had dreamed about 2 years earlier. And I think that is just so common for us as entrepreneurs to like be dreaming, and then we're living our dream, but we're not slowing down enough to actually realize that we're living out our dream. And that's why I'm also super passionate about slowing down and taking the time to reflect on it, because otherwise we hit every milestone we've ever wanted to, but it's still not enough. Mm-hmm. And why isn't it? It's because we're not slowing down. It's because that milestone isn't actually bringing us the happiness that we thought it would, or that we're just not appreciating it enough to bring us the happiness that we need it to. And so that I remember like breaking down in tears at this table at this retreat, because here I was thinking I was so unhappy, but it was because I was trying to pull in everything else, and I was trying to add things to my plate to make me happy, when all I needed to do was eliminate things and be left with the things that actually I already had that make me happy. And so that was like a really big sign. That was when I said, okay, I'm coming back from maternity leave. I'm here pregnant right now. When I come back from maternity leave, I am setting in boundaries. I'm putting in seasons of rest so I can slow down, I can reflect, I can enjoy this time, and I can actually see, hey, it's a Monday and I'm driving my daughter to grandma's house while I'm working, because it's a season of hustle. Like being able to do things like that. So I would just say, like, we as business owners, we have to journal. We have to maybe not journal, but yeah, journal, like put it somewhere so you can reflect on it and you can see like actually how far you've come, because it's so easy for us to say, oh, she's doing that, I need to do that too. He's doing that, I need to do that too. And not actually realize like we already have what we've always wanted. So that's, I think, just in the reflecting aspect of that question, that is something that is so crucial for me to do every single year now. And something I do in every season of rest is like, look back at where I am and what I just accomplished and who we're impacting and who we're helping. And it helps so much to be able to realize we don't need to add more. We actually need to eliminate more in our life.
Oh, I love that so much. Okay. Let's wrap it up by talking about, there's more than one way to have a successful business. I'll put it that way. And if making a ton of money per month doesn't make you happy, how can we make sure that we're kind of building our business around hitting the goals that fire us up? Whether that's revenue, if that is what it is for you, that's great. But I know for both of us, it's not really what we come to work every day for. So how can we make sure that we're not chasing after that if that isn't for us?
Yeah, I think in this industry, there's a lot of talk about the money side of it, which we all need. In order to run our businesses, we need a certain amount of money to make. But I know there's a lot of talk of like how to make a 6-figure year, how to make a 7-figure year. I actually just saw yesterday, like how to make an 8-figure year. And I'm like, when was like 6 figure is not enough, or when, and it's just so interesting to me that there's always this chase for us as a milestone, or like there's always this chase for a specific dollar milestone as entrepreneurs for us to claim our success. And for me, that chase was not worth it. So I always like to ask the question, like, who is it that you want to be known by? Is it that you want to be known in the industry? Is it that you want to be known by your clients? Is it that you want to be known as the expert to do X, Y, and Z? Like, are those the people that you truly think would bring you happiness to be known by? If so, chase after that. But if you want to be known by, like for me, I want to be known by my family. I want to be known by the one who can like create a space for them to come to on the weekends and feel taken care of. I want to be known by Ellie. I want her to know that when she was growing up, like I was there for it. And so again, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer for those that are chasing 6, 7, and 8 figure. That's not wrong if that's what success looks like for you. But for me, that's not what I want to be known for. And I know that those things wouldn't fill my cup up. As I said earlier, like I feel like adding more to my plate is what makes me unhappy. When I eliminate things and I see ultimately what I already have, that's what makes me happy. And so I would just, really look at what is it that drives you. And for me, it's who I want to be known by. It's not the money. Like for me, making 30,000 or 40,000 or 50,000 working 3 to 4 days a week would make me way more happier than if I was working 7 days a week chasing $100,000 or 7 figures. So that's just, again, nothing against those that are chasing after that. But when you are deciding on the next thing that you want to do or the direction you need to take in your company, I think you really need to sit down and look at like, ultimately, what is going to make you happy? Is it the life you're chasing? Is that lifestyle mean a lot of money and like known by people on the internet? Or is it to have what you need ultimately and like be fully known by the people in front of you right here, right now? So yeah, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that, but that's kind of how I've defined what in this season means the most to me. And when Ellie goes to school, it might change.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's seasons of business and seasons of life for sure.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I'm so lucky to know you and I just adore you. So thank you for being here. This conversation, I think, is going to be such a good listen for those that are growing their business, looking to come into the creative industry, looking to hire a VA. So thank you, Em. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you for having me. I hope this was helpful. And again, I don't think, like, just to reiterate to everyone who's listening, like there is no right or wrong answer to any of this. There's no right or wrong way to run your business, grow your team. I think you have to just go through it to learn. We've learned so much over the last 3 years. And there are people out there that love being on teams. So that's encouragement to everyone who's looking.